You're not hearing me, are you? It's because I've missed two shows. I've forgotten how to do this. I hadn't unmuted my microphone. Can people hear me now? Yeah. So I don't understand that why that is. So can I just check? I'm the only one. No one else can be heard. Neither Thunder nor Hogtie. What am I doing? Oh, yeah. You see, 2 weeks away and or two shows away and default microphone. That should be working. Hang on. Okay. Ah, right. Okay. I think now everyone will be able to be heard. I'd forgotten to unmute the loudspeaker as well. Let's try again. If Thunderfoot, if you say something, can you be heard, please?
Hello, hello, hello.
I heard
Yeah.
I
There
heard
we go. That all works,
a
and
total of
you
six
will as well.
hellos.
Okay. So let's
There we are.
draw some sort of veil over the previous embarrassing few moments and start all over again. Because I think now everyone can be heard, and it's down to my incompetence, so I apologise. So welcome everyone to the 115th edition of the Magic Sandwich Show, where it's a huge pleasure to welcome Hogtie Champ and Thunderfoot. Okay, we've got that bit out of the way, and everyone I think now can be heard, so we can crack on. We missed two shows, and as well, you wouldn't have heard Hogtie saying this, but I'll explain why. The 2 shows ago, I was not feeling well, and we had a lack of people on the panel in any event, so I decided to cancel that one. And the one that should have taken place 2 weeks ago, I was staying with Owen Ra, and as Hogtie said, I can't remember exactly what I was doing, but apparently we were broadcast. Oh, we did do some broadcasts, but not a Magic Sandwich show. So I apologise for that, but hopefully from now on we'll be back to our regular 2 week spots. The one change that I may be thinking of making is that I appreciate that the majority of the audience, I think, comes from America, and it may not be the most convenient time. Even though the most people that watch the show don't actually watch it live, they watch it when it's subsequently being posted. But because we like audience participation, it may be that we're going to put the show back a couple of hours to make it more convenient. And it would certainly be more convenient for one of the people that used to regularly appear, Concordance, who due to new commitments with his family, is certainly not able to make it at this time. So we're thinking about that. If you want to send us any feedback on that, put it into the chat. I've got an eye on the Vaughan TV chat, and obviously I can go back and have a look at the YouTube live show comments there, sort of like remain. So you can comment on both, or you can send a message either through Twitter to the DPR Jones, and thank you for the 2 people who've retweeted the one that I posted saying that this show is starting. You can send us, if you want to appear live on the show, you can send us a Skype contact request to Magic Sandwich Show, all one word. Please include, if you're going to do that, the gist of the topic or question that you would like to ask or discuss, and we'll see if we can get you on. Yeah, Skype, Twitter, and Vaughan messages, or YouTube live messages. So you can contact us that way. I'm getting a message from someone. Oh, yes. Thank you, Rationalizer. I've got the wrong audio selected. Yes, we've worked that out now. But thank you very much for that. So, first thing I wanted to discuss, and I'd like, I know this is sort of like, I derive a lot of fun from it. I don't know whether the audience does, but hey, I've got the two of you here. And I'd like to ask you about the blood moon. And let's actually start off with Thunderfoot, who hopefully will be able to explain the difference between a blood moon, a lunar eclipse, and a supermoon lunar eclipse.
Well, supermoon's largely a misnomer. The supermoon is only fractionally larger than basically the moon's orbit around the Earth is not circular. So there are times of the lunar orbit when it's actually close to the Earth and times when it's further away. So if you like, you get a supermoon every time the moon goes around the Earth, right? Every month you get a supermoon. And eclipses, it turns out, because there's one plane in which the moon goes around the Earth, and there's another plane in which the Earth goes around the Sun. So there are only, because those two planes are at a funny angle to each other, there are only basically 2 times of year when you can get eclipses. That's, for an eclipse you need all 3 bodies to be in a line, which basically means they can only occur when the plane of the Earth-Moon orbit intersects the Sun-Earth orbit, the Sun-Earth plane, which basically turns out to be about this time of year and 6 months, when we're on the other side of the Sun. So 6 months from now. So it turns out there's a time of year when the eclipses tend to be when the moon is closer, and then 6 months away the eclipses will be smaller. The whole supermoon thing is complete bullshit. Yeah,
So
it really
my
is.
My understanding was that, I think this is what you're saying, that it's basically because it's an elliptical orbit. It's when it's closest to the Earth.
Yeah, that's it.
So,
and it just so happens.
What did you? Sorry, do go on.
And it just so happens the eclipse happened to be when the moon was relatively close to the Earth. Calling it a supermoon, well, what the hell does that mean? I mean, it's like what? So the difference in the size between the moon when it's at its closest and its furthest away is about 10% in diameter, which is to the point where you wouldn't be able to tell the two if you were to just look at them, right? So calling it a supermoon, what exactly is it that makes it super?
Well, I don't know. I presume it's just because it's closer, and someone in the chat had actually said it's because it looks 10% bigger.
Yeah. Well, when you're 10% bigger, you rarely call that super. I'm 10% taller than. Actually, no, you're about the same size as me. But just imagine I was 10% taller than you. Would you call me super tall?
I think you might be about 5% taller.
There we go. Well, okay. So would you call you?
You are tall.
So that would mean you're super shrimpy then.
Okay. So anyway, the trouble is that the questions in relation to the blood moon that I had, you're going to know the answer to, I'm sure, but I didn't think Hogtie would, and I wasn't expecting you to be here. So these may be slightly unfair, but are you able to tell me when the next supermoon eclipse is going to be? Hogtie, you go first.
Yeah, I don't know that I could. They're not timed like these eclipses are 6 months. That's sort of makes sense how that works. But whether or not the moon is further or closer, I don't necessarily have a handle on. Like the moon may be closer in first quarter, so I don't really know when's the next one. I'm going to say 4 years from now. I don't know.
Okay, Thunder. That would be 2019. What would you say, Thunder?
So I had this conversation with someone. They assured me that it was like, it was decades away, or maybe hundreds. I don't know, but I mean it's largely bullshit. You get lunar eclipses this time of year every few years. I mean, to say that, well, the eclipse will be when the moon is 2% larger? Well, who cares? You
All
know?
right, well, let me tell you, the source I'm relying on is the BBC science page. So I'm
Don't trust that too much. Believe me.
What?
all right. Well, when do you think that they are predicting the next supermoon eclipse is going to be? And is there anyone in the audience that? Oh, someone in the audience already knows. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I think
when
the audience
they
beat us
say
on this one.
when they say supermoon eclipse, do they mean when the moon is bigger than it currently is, or I mean, what classifies as a supermoon?
I'm guessing, and this is a guess because they don't actually specify it. I'm guessing they're talking about a similar alignment where there is a total lunar eclipse when the moon is as close to the Earth as it was on the last one.
Yeah. So I mean, if we just had a particularly rare whatever, then yeah, it can easily be hundreds of years. But other than that, you'll have something almost identical, indistinguishable to all but those who sit down and measure the angular diameter of the moon in a few years. Maybe not even that.
Wait,
Okay.
let's say it's within 2 days.
I've got to give it to the
there.
audience. I can only take the answer on the
Done.
card. I've got to give it to
Okay.
the audience. According to the
Audience.
website, it's 2033.
Yeah.
So I think we've got to give the audience a point for that one. Although I kind of suspect that Thunder's probably more accurate in his analysis. But and
The bullshit analysis. You repeatedly called it.
How many total lunar eclipses are there going to be before 2033?
Well,
Are you including partials?
Totals.
Are you totals, lunars and solars, or just
Lunars.
just lunars.
lunars? I don't know. You probably get one a year. So
Let's say 15. Yeah.
Well, yeah, something like that.
The terrible sad fact is I wrote out this and I didn't actually put the answer down and I can't remember. I think they actually say it's about 30, but I can't be sure.
Yeah,
So what did the audience say on that? 5? No, 5's definitely 30. No.
I mean, they're not rare
I
occurrences.
don't think I can give any marks to that. So the audience at the moment are 1-0 up. Now, here's a topic close to our hearts, Thunder. Obviously, we have to pay respects for those that died in the Oregon shooting in the past week. But it leads on to in which 9 people were killed. Yeah. So it leads on to my next question. The way America defines mass shootings is if 4 or more people are killed or injured. How many mass shootings do you think have occurred in America this year? And this is open to the audience as well.
They're usually about every 4 to 6 months, I think. So I would say there's only been 1 or 2.
This is 4 or more people being killed or injured.
Oh, hang on. Now it depends. Bank robberies, do they? But then again, I'm going to go for 2.
2 mass killings so far this year.
Yeah. It's more than that. I was going to say 3 or 4, and then I remembered a couple more. I'll go with 4, just so we can split the points if it's 3. But I'm pretty sure it's more than 4.
To be clear, that this is people who are killed or injured. 4 or more killed or injured in one incident.
Oh, if you're including injured, then you can injure 4 people with a single bullet.
Yeah.
Well, not that that's happened this year, but yeah.
It happened in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, so I know it must. Hollywood would never lie to me about something as serious as that. But I mean, to an extent, if you think about it, 4 or more people. I mean, how many car wrecks have there been this year in which 4 or more people were killed?
But that's
no. I think
I'm sorry,
they're talking about the
you
actions.
you can't change the question. The question is how many under the definition that I've just given you, that is 4 or more people have been killed or injured in a single incident. How many such and they define that as mass shootings. How many mass
Okay,
shootings have there been?
let's. The thing is, I know about things like gangland and whatever. I mean, usually the ones that make the headlines are people who just go and kill random people.
Yeah.
And things like that are comparatively rare. They're only like once every 6 months or something. If it's just the total number, I don't know. I'll go for 5.
Okay.
No, it just jumps past my answer. Um, it's not just people getting killed in an incident or shot or injured in an incident. It's
But no,
by
it's
a single perpetrator or a single criminal enterprise, like Columbine, for example, where 2 people had buddied up to embark on a spree killing. Right.
and
You're going to go to
also,
5 now.
No,
So
actually,
you're going more than 5 or less than 5?
Well, I had already said 4.
Okay.
So,
well, I have to say
no,
that someone
doing the praise
right. The thing that really changed.
He said 2.
When you say killed or injured, if it was 4 or more killed, then those are going to be comparatively rare.
Yes, and that's why I expressed it several times. It's killed
Killed
or injured, 4 or more. Someone I can tell you now. Someone in the chat.
So you can actually have you can actually have a mass killing where no one's actually killed. So a mass shooting. A mass shooting where
yes.
where
How
no
many
one's
mass
killed.
shootings? Not I didn't say mass killings. I said mass shootings.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. I'll stick with 5. I know it's more than that, but
Thunderfoot cheats worse than Aussie.
Go on, Hogtie. What's your
well,
your
no,
answer?
I said I'm sticking with 5. But
You went with 5. Well, I said 4. Do I want to go to 6?
10 is no. Go to 10. Go to 10. 10's sensible.
I'm-
If you don't take
okay, I'm
10,
sticking-
I'll take 10.
All right.
6.
You're
Final
going
answer.
10 and
Lock it in.
6.
I'm going
All right.
6. Yeah.
Okay. As I said, someone in the chat in Vaughan actually got it spot on, and you're out by a factor of about 50.
What? Who? What?
Yes, 294 so far this year in America.
No, you got something. You got something twisted there. That's not-
No.
Are you including the guy that shot? You including the guy that shot the armadillo and then himself with one? Like, how
I'll
are
tell
you
you what I'm
getting
going to
to
do. I'm
294?
going to open up a screenshot. I'm going to take it from the website. If you think that I am, it'll take me a couple of seconds to do it. Not that many, I hope.
So I mean, we know that there's about what is it? It's about 20,000 a year killed in America from gunshots.
That was a follow-up question, Thunder, and I will come to that. But
So
this isn't
20.
this isn't the. Hang on, let me just. Right, can you see that on Vaughan TV? I think if I scroll up, if I can do, there we go.
Nice and crisp.
Oregon shooting.
That's nice.
Yeah, you've got. Oh, I can't go all the way to the top, but it says Oregon shooting, statistics behind, and then you can see routine gun violence, and we go down to let's see, there we go. It begins with, for the 15th time, blah blah blah. 9 people have been killed, blah blah blah. He said this was routine. Let me just bring up this. He's had to make 15 statements during his presidency, 994 mass shootings since he was re-elected in 2012. There have been 294, yeah, we can see that, yeah, defined as an incident in which 4 or more people are killed or injured so far in 2015. That is more than 1 per day.
So hang on, let me. Does the wounded have to be by gunshot?
Yes.
Okay. So what if someone like fires the starting pistol and 3 people fall over and graze their knees and 1 dies by a heart attack?
Oh, I think, Thunder, that's not classed as a firearm.
Well, okay, he uses his.
If you can actually find one incident when that has happened, then
No, I'm just
fine.
curious to actually know what some of these instances are. So yeah, it's about 50 people a day, I think, are shot in America. Which
Well,
yeah,
again,
so
I'm
that's
coming
about
on to that.
20,000.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying I'll ask you this question before I scroll down, and you can actually see the answer. But you will see there that of the 294 mass shootings, and I do think that definition is somewhat vague because I don't know whether it requires simply 4 people to be injured or 4 people to be killed. But
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what bugs me about that definition is it stinks of that. Um, that 1 in 5 women on campus has been raped or sexually assaulted, and it turns out their definition of sexual assault is that if someone rubbed up against you in a way that you didn't particularly like in a nightclub, that would count as sexual assault. And when the definitions are so widely spread, I mean, putting rape in there is almost a redundancy at that point. In the same way that sort of killed or injured. I don't know. I mean, the whole
okay,
thing
but let's
doesn't stink. Okay, keep going.
well, you were going to give because this was one of my next questions. How many people do you say have been killed by firearms, illegally killed by firearms this year so far in America? And this is according to
Illegally killed or just killed?
Well, seeing as let's say that we can't determine yet because of probably trials in process. Let's just say killed by firearms and leave out the illegal.
Yeah. So it's about 20,000 a year ish die from gunshot wounds in America, which you say there's 400 days a year. That's 50 people a day.
So you think the figure for this year, 2015, according to Gun Violence Archive, would be, give me a figure.
So this year, we're 3/4 of the way through. It's going to be about 15,000.
Oh, okay, Hogtie?
Yeah, no, it's got to be over 30. Are we including both murder, suicides, and straight up suicides? I mean, it's over 30,000.
Oh, are you including injured as well here?
I don't think I was including. I'll have to scroll down. Okay. Well, in fact, if you actually looked at the screen, you'd see the answer.
Oh.
I've already scrolled down so far. Okay.
I lost my screen here.
What this website's again, relying on the Gun Violence Archive, 9,956 people have been killed by firearms so far this year, and more than 20,000 have been injured.
That's going down. I mean, it's been going down for quite some time now. The actual number.
I don't think it has actually, because I think there's a graph lower down that I'll scroll down to in a
No,
second.
it has. It's been. It used to be there was this race between the more people killed on the roads or killed by gunshot wounds, and for a long time the cars killed more people. Even though the cars were getting safer, people were driving them more like idiots. So the number stayed about the same, and recently I think it's the gun violence has tailed off, and it's now more people are actually killed in the cars than by gunshots. It used to be the other way around, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've got those figures in this table, but I have scrolled down a little bit further down the article, and I don't want to scroll any further, although I think I probably have scrolled too far. Yes, you can see it. Let me just scroll up before you sneakily read it. So what per 100,000, how many people, or what is it like? Let me try and phrase this.
Well, why don't we do it per 300 million? Then we can just do it for the whole country.
Yeah, but I was comparing.
Because otherwise, I have to start doing all these sort of knocking off the zeros, and
Well, how much more likely is it per 100,000 that you're going to? What is the percentage? No, actually, we'll stick with how many times more likely is it that you're going to be killed in America by a firearm than compared with the United Kingdom?
it's between 2 and 3 or between 50 and 100 times, I think.
Yeah.
I was going to say 50.
Yeah, well, I think that seeing as I posed the question so poorly, I'll give you a point each for that. As we see here on the graph, if you're watching, Vaughan, the rates per homicide rate per 100,000 people. This is for 2012. It shows that it is nearly 30 times more likely that you're going to be killed in America than you are in the UK. And the percentage of those which are done by guns is shown in that graph. So 60% of homicides are committed with a firearm in the United States, whereas in the United Kingdom it's 0.1% of
So
Well,
actually, here,
murders.
Yeah.
Or
Well, the gun percentage, aside from the murder rates, that's interesting. Just the sliver, the thickness of the sliver, or in the case of the USA, the chunk, that's attributable to the homicides that are sort of attributable by guns, is really strongly related to the liberty and gun ownership in those countries. Because Australia took that huge step when it was the late part of the 90s to get rid of guns. UK is famously, even the police don't carry guns for the most part, I'm told.
that's right.
Canada is certainly more gun liberal than either Australia or the UK, but about about that much, 4 or 5 times as much as Australia. More of us
Yeah.
have guns, but just not nearly the same scale of comparison as the USA.
Okay, so I think it's my final question on this topic. And again, audience, please throw in your answers if you like. How many guns is it estimated are in existence in the United States?
it's more than 300 million. I'll go for 400. Let's go for 400 million.
Okay, Hogtie?
So it's
Yeah.
more than one gun per American. I know that.
One
So
gun.
it's
I'm trying to figure out how much more. Let's say if you say
go for
what's 1.2?
Okay, well,
What's 1.2 per
apparently,
person? 300.
and again, I think it's on this website. I'm pretty certain it is. The actual answer, I have to give it to, if you were saying more than that, Hogtie, I have to give the point to Thunder. But even he slightly overestimated it. Oh, no, I don't want to show that graph.
Well, I said
yet.
1.2 per person, so that's whatever 300 million times 1.2. For some reason, I struggle with the math
3.6.
Yeah,
there. There we go.
3.6 million. And Thunder, you said 400.
400.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently it's 300 million.
Are those the legal ones, or are those these that including the?
You just can't accept defeat ever, can you, Thunder?
Well, no, I just want to know what we're talking about. It's like
That's again, I can only go from the figures that I'm working from, which again I think are in this article. If they're not, I don't know where I got them from. Oh yes, I do. I got it from the story before this that linked to this page. Let me just check whether it's in this or not.
So I'll tell you what would be an interesting statistic is gun. In other words, what is the probability of a gun killing someone in England versus in America? Because they have so many guns, I think you'll find that the chances of a gun actually killing someone is relatively small. Whereas if you've got a gun in England, it's more likely to actually be used to shoot someone.
On a per gun basis, that's interesting.
I think you're probably right, Thunder.
Can we
do,
pause?
but I don't have those figures. But if someone wants to try and look them
Well, sure
up,
you do. You do. How many?
Yeah, there are not. Basically, there's a gun for everyone in America there. There is not a gun for every 50 people in England.
Yes.
So, there you go.
Yeah. So,
Is
all right. So, my final question on this before we move on. Oh no, I might actually have a couple more questions, but I'm going to sort of like do them in short form because there are other topics that I'd like to talk about if we can. The question. Oh yes. Compared. No. All right. I'll rephrase it in short form. The US spends obviously trillions of pounds on defending against terrorist attacks.
No, they don't. They spend.
Against terrorist attacks. Okay. Now, how many people on average between 2001 and 2011, leaving aside 9/11? So effectively from 2012 to 2011, sorry, 2002 to 2011, how many people, Americans, per year have been killed by reason of terrorist attacks? And again, this is open to the audience. And I'm keeping an eye on Vaughan. Hogtie, I think Thunder's gone first on the last couple of occasions. You've got to go
Oh,
first on
always,
this one.
he always does. Yeah. Oh, I think give me a really hard one like that. Oh, it's. Is it even 11 per year?
Is that your
Um,
figure? 11?
yeah, yeah, and
Okay.
this is civilian deaths, not including.
I'm not restricting it to civilian.
I'll stick with 11. Sure.
Okay, Thunder.
So this is people in mainland America killed by terrorists.
Unfortunately, the article doesn't say whether it's on the mainland. I suspect it's not. I
Yeah, I was
suspect they're
including.
including attacks on their embassies, attacks on their ships, and such like.
Oh, they're
But
almost non-existent.
Well, is it
But
high? You've got a choice: higher or lower than 11.
higher.
Do you want to put a figure on it? I'll tell you,
Um,
you've actually won if you're going higher. But I'm just
I would
interested.
go. I would go for about 50 or something. I mean, it's.
You're closer. Apparently, it is 31.
Oh, hang on. Yeah, but is that just like all? How many years are we going back?
We're going 2002. Well, we could go
Yeah,
back to 2001, but we're excluding 9/11. So we're
Boston.
talking about
Boston.
2002 to 2011 per
So
year.
Boston bomber killed, half a dozen or something. Actually, he didn't
Yeah.
kill that many. He only killed 4, I think. But then again, do you count the actual guy, the terrorist dying? Does he
No,
count
I
as a
don't. I
death?
don't think they're not. They certainly weren't included in the figures of 9/11. So I presume the
Oh,
terrorist, if it is a suicide terrorist, is not included.
yeah. Okay.
So 31. There we go. Anyway, one of the things, and this sort of like leads on from it. We'll leave the quiz aside, although I've got a few more questions to come back to you on if we run short of topics, which I'm absolutely sure we won't. One article or one thing that came out of the Oregon shootings, which of course were a huge tragedy, and the press immediately picked up on, or a lot of the press immediately picked up on the fact that these were. Let me just go back to scene one so everyone can see us again. There we go. That these were attacks against, or this was an attack against Christians. What do you suppose the lieutenant governor of Tennessee had to say about the issue and his advice to Christians?
The who? Sorry, the what of Tennessee?
Lieutenant governor of Tennessee. I think I've got it.
Oh, I don't know. I
LT.
I hadn't heard.
Okay.
Is it Lieutenant Governor?
Yes. What was his advice to people? To Christians.
Boy, that's why my mind's going around in circles on that one, because you could say, well, if
Pray.
anybody asks your religion, go ahead, Thunder.
Pray.
No.
They always like to pray,
No.
especially pray
on, it's-
before that it
it's-
doesn't happen. Pray afterwards. That
It's a segue from what we've just been discussing.
I was going to say, don't tell people, if you ask, don't tell people your religion. If the guy's going to shoot you, don't tell people your religion, which of course they're not ever supposed to deny Christ, but he might try to spin it as, well, look, this is an attack on Christians, so you're better off to sort of duck and cover.
You're getting closer. Let's see if we can get a screenshot of this.
carry more guns.
Yep, you've got it.
Okay. Yeah.
And there we go. Hang on, I have to scroll up a little bit, do I? Yes.
Well, after anytime these
serious Christians to arm themselves against, and we have to look at the small print here, which is kindly made slightly bigger, a little bit lower.
Yeah,
down.
I can see it now. And yay, Jesus said, "Turn the other cheek." And the congregation stood up and says, "Yeah, but someone just capped one of the audience." And Jesus said, "Oh yeah, well, forget that turn the other cheek crap. Get yourself a 44 Magnum."
Basically, yes, he's advising that Christians should defend themselves against atheists by applying for permits to carry guns. And there are associated articles, and
A good biblical solution.
because we've talked about this for longer than I anticipated, I'm not going to refer to the articles that also suggested, what were they? I did have them sort of like lined up, and I thought I wouldn't use them. It wasn't which handgun to carry, but basically, it was questioning whether it really was sensible to.
It's a good question.
No, that was it. That was it. It was if a teacher had carried a gun, then they would have been able to stop this.
Yeah, this comes up every time there's a mass shooting. Is if only there were more good guys with guns. This is the expression, is sort of the model that they operate under. Is this, well, we need more good guys with guns, sort of closer to the Wild West, where people could sort of take like somebody like that out. I used to really subscribe to that theory. Let me say first off, the thing that's really weird about that comment too, it says, well, we need more Christians with guns to arm themselves against the atheists who do this type of thing all the time, apparently. Set aside other religiously motivated people who kill people for whatever crazy reason they've got. But anyway, that's insane. But just sticking with the good guy with guns thing, I would challenge anyone to present me some evidence, even anecdotal evidence, of a good guy with a gun actually saving some lives. And remember, I really used to subscribe to that theory. To me, it made sense if there were more guns. You hear things like that these mass shootings happen selectively in places where guns are banned, because then the gunman knows that he can walk around with impunity because nobody else has a gun. They'll never go to a place where guns are allowed. People have concealed carry permits because there's a chance that they might get shot. And apparently, look at the stats. There's really no difference. They don't selectively. There's one little blip, like in Florida, people tend to get robbed coming back from the airport because that's the one place in Florida where you can't have a gun. But that's got to do with carjacking. But in terms of these mass shootings, like people going into a movie theater, well, how do they know the other people in the movie theater don't have a gun? And why wasn't there someone in the movie theater with a gun who was able to be in the circumstances where they could go and put an end to that shooting? So this good guy with the gun thing, it's an appealing notion that just isn't borne out in any data anywhere. If I'm wrong about that, send me a message.
I mean, it's also, just the chances of the actual situation arising. It's not just you've got to have a gun. You've got to actually be able to make the call there and then that, you've got to be willing to shoot someone. Now... And of course, the second you start shooting at him, you become prime target. Well, which is a better thing to do under the circumstances. Save your life and let people with body armor and bigger guns deal with him or her.
I mean, this is something that I've actually considered. I didn't see the conversation going down this route, but let's see where it takes us.
Well, it comes up every time.
It's been suggested to me a few times. Well, haven't there been circumstances in which you would have liked to have been able to carry a gun and defend yourself? And I honestly referred to a specific incident that took place in some dodgy resort in northern Spain, where leaving a nightclub, I was assaulted by, I think, 3 or 4 people. I can't quite remember, but I ended up on the ground fairly quickly and I was having my head stamped on. And I explained this to them, and they said, well, you must have wanted a gun. You must have wanted a gun then to shoot these people. And my answer was no. I'm not sure whether these people have really thought these things through, but I would find it, I would find it incredibly difficult to shoot anyone. I can't conceive of any situation that I've ever been in when I would like to have had a gun to defend myself. And I just the idea that I had killed someone and would have to carry that fact for the rest of my life would trouble me. Now, that's not to say that I can't imagine that there would be some extreme circumstances in which I would be prepared to kill someone, but they would be absolutely extreme. And I just wonder, I mean, I know Thunder may have guns, they may be locked up in under the laws of the United Kingdom as necessary and whatever, but I don't know what your position, Hogtie, is, but I just find it extraordinary that people think, oh yeah, just carry guns and shoot and defend yourself without realizing what firstly the escalation of that incident may be if two people suddenly draw a gun on each other, and secondly the psychological damage that it would have if you've got to live with the fact that you've shot someone, and sorry, killed someone.
It's a total fantasy scenario, and I mean, I subscribe to the fantasy. I would, it's such a video game thing. It'd be neat to be that hero that's able to
the Hollywood hero.
Yeah. And even if, like, let's suppose you're in a bank and then there's like a hostage taking, but you're armed and you're able to sort of secretly, what's his name, John. Oh come on, the Die Hard movies, Die Hard, whatever his name is. That sort of scenario where
Bruce Willis,
yeah, but whatever the character's name is, where he's the cowboy, but he's there and he secretly is able to sneak around and then take these guys out. I would love to be able to do that stuff, but it doesn't happen. And DPR, even your particular account of here's another one. You got a sniper rifle, and there's a guy in another building that's able to take some hostages, and you're able to take them out. Oh, that'd be cool. But these things don't happen to normal people. They happen to SWAT teams that take hours and hours to organize those sorts of things. These things just don't happen to normal people. So let's go back to your scenario of things that do happen. You're walking around and somebody jumps you. Doesn't happen very often, but it happens to a number of people. And it's happened to me. And the thing is, it's not a video game. If you get a clunk in the head, you don't want to be floundering around on your back, with your arms like this, and then you want to be able to pull out a gun and start shooting a guy. You're not going to do the world any good, in those circumstances. Guns are not helpful in a situation of a physical assault like that. It's just a complete fantasy.
Yeah, I'm going to move on now because I'm aware.
I mean, there is also.
Things. Sorry, do go on.
One last point that I alluded to this earlier, that your chances of getting run over in America are comparable to your chances of getting shot. And it's a damn sight easier to look both ways before you cross the road than, they're one of these things you can take more. Actually, some of them not. I mean, if people are just going to rear end you, but you know what I mean, that there are things that you can do to make your life longer. Carrying a gun is unlikely to be something that's going to extend your life significantly.
I would tend to agree. I know that when you and I had a discussion with Aaron and David Smalley, it was quite clear that there was a totally different cultural attitude in America, and I've seen the speech made by Obama. I'll even include a link to it in the video on YouTube when I can. About how frustrating he finds it that he cannot make any significant change in the gun laws because of Congress and because of the power of the it's National Rifle Association, isn't it? I think.
Yep.
I don't want to dwell on this because there are many other interesting things I want to talk about, and the next one actually involves you, Thunder. So shall we move on to that? I'll tell you what. We'll leave it with an offer to any American that wants to come on a future show and try and argue that they don't have an issue with gun laws in America. We'll make a space for you.
Can I add to that challenge? And I do. If there are stories of more was it good guys with guns. Because I think even if there are some, they're just going to pale in comparison to the sheer number of these mass shootings. That just wouldn't have made a difference. But yeah, bring them on. John McLean, thank you to audiences on both YouTube and Vaughn for helping me out with that one. And there is some brief discussion there about the good guy with gun on airplanes. My dad, by the way, is one of the people who thinks that he should be allowed to carry a handgun on the airplane with him because he knows he could take out a terrorist if it comes down to it.
Although you can almost be guaranteed if everyone did that, you would probably lose more airplanes due to people accidentally discharging their guns.
No, we had a whole Thunder, we had a whole show on not a whole show. We did a segment on whether or not shooting a gun in an airplane would bring down an airplane. There's a big hole in the back of the plane. Like
Well, right. There are two things. There's all the control systems. There's the engine, and most obviously the pilot.
The pilot, yeah, pilot getting a bead in the back of the head is probably a bad idea. Sure, we shouldn't be firing off guns in airplanes. I'll go that far with you. But a gun going through a window, was it Goldfinger? Which one was it? Whatever. That didn't happen. We did a. Yeah. Okay, let's not cycle back to.
Yeah.
Topics covered on previous episodes. We'll post a link to the previous episode where we solved this.
Absolutely. Thunder, what I wanted to talk to you about, and I had this lined up for a slightly different reason, but I wasn't aware that you were going to be here. But let's talk about the release of Kent Hovind, and he's been out for a couple of months now, and I think it's absolutely fantastic that he has come out spewing the same old bullshit as he did when he went in. And he even has, so far as I can see, pretty much exactly the same charts that he used to use. And he's not changed his position from, the biblical inerrancy to anything like Eric and Sai's newfound position about presuppositionalism. But what I thought was incredibly funny was that he made a challenge to you. And I'm more than happy to play that video. But let me just step away. You explain to the audience what it was all about, and then if you think it's appropriate, we can play your video response to his challenge to you.
Okay. So I can't even remember now. So he said that he wanted to debate anyone. Oh no, that's right. No, he had actually seen some of my videos and said, yes, I will debate Thunderfoot or some shit. And so I said, all right then. I'm not going to do a debate, as it were, because I really don't see that, one person. If you're just going to go for one person says what they want, the other person says what they want. Well, how is that different from just doing it? Yeah, how is that different from just doing it on YouTube, right? Well, I'll make my video, he makes his video. I mean, the whole point of actually having two people there is you can sit down and discuss something. So I was up for a discussion. I don't think a debate actually gets you very far. But
although, wasn't he pushing to have it hosted by drunken peasants? Wasn't that? Am I thinking of a different story, or?
So it's related, but they were going to have some discussion with the drunken peasants, and they said he wasn't going to do it because it had to be no profanity. For some reason, God can't. And it's like, oh, come on, what is this? And he does this sort of standard rhetorical trick, which is just annoying. That you can bring all of the scientists you want to, or all the evolutionists you want, as long as I get half of the time. Which is like, well, actually, I can play that game as well. You can bring all of the religious people you want, as long as I get half of the time. I mean, all it really does is it dilutes the effort, and because all of these religious sorts are all on different pages anyway, at least with scientists, they're mostly going to be on the same page. They're unlikely to be coordinated in a way that you would need for such debate, which is, of course, why it would actually be detrimental to, if you've only got one guy there, he might not know everything, but at least he can, I mean, we had some of these early on, when we had some of these debates with creationists, is you get people stumbling over each other trying to answer the point. It just looks messy. So at least with one person, there's clarity.
We get that a lot with these 10-person hangouts on Google Hangouts, where you'll have 9 people on one side and one person on the other side, and they're just constantly tripping over each other and not letting somebody sort of flesh out a point. So I don't know, what he's thinking there. I do want to comment a little bit on the context, and I'm worried I'm going to be repeating something I said 6 weeks ago or last time I was on Magic Sandwich Show. But we had talked about Kent Hovind briefly, and one thing I find really interesting about this, not the audience, they know this already, but I just find it an interesting observation. Thunderfoot, who were you when Kent Hovind went to jail? Like you weren't even Thunderfoot, right? There was no, and I mean the Thunderfoot character, not, I mean
No,
like on YouTube, you're
I
fairly well
think
known.
I think I was around. I was making videos before he went to jail. I
Oh, you
think.
were? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
I'm old school.
I have to say, Hogtie, I think he was. Hovind has spent 9 years in prison, so he was sentenced in 2006. I think that YouTube been up and running for 2 years, and I'm pretty certain that Thunder made videos that were responding directly to Kent Hovind videos at the time.
Oh, I thought you were still doing your little, not that you were bad, but I thought it was before responding to Venom Fang X's nonsense. The Why Do People Laugh at
Actually,
Creation?
I
I
know
thought it was your telescope videos, which are good in their way.
it's a close run thing. Maybe he was in jail by then. Maybe not. I can't remember.
Okay. Well, my point stands. And the point is that I just found it interesting, and I'll be brief because I'm just repeating what I said a while ago, but I'm just so entertained by this. Like to find somebody in 2015 that sort of has heard of YouTube and is familiar with the concept, but like has no immersion in it, no familiarity with it. And then like, okay, we let him out of jail. Then here you go. Here's a YouTube channel. And, there's already videos about him. He's already internet famous. He's already YouTube famous, but he doesn't go to YouTube. So now he's got his own channel, and his first video was hilarious with the, how do I start? I think I'm uploading on, but the one thing he did learn very quickly, as somebody taught him clearly, was how to delete and block comments. So he's pretty efficient at that. But yeah, he seems pretty eager to talk to you. And
Well, I mean that means that he must actually read them.
well,
Yeah, I mean it's like that. That's the thing is, that means he's got to read all those comments and decide whether they're just winding him up or some shit like that. And then he's got to.
But this whole thing fizzled out. Like you haven't talked to him. He hasn't contacted you since. It's just puffery, right? It's just chest beating at this point, isn't it? Or at that point, this was more than a month ago. This happened.
Yeah, something like that.
Apparently, either Aaron or someone on Aaron's behalf who was aware that Kent was going to be going somewhere near the Dallas area suggested that he have a debate with Aaron, and apparently Kent turned it down on the basis that he didn't have enough time to prepare for it. Which I think is absolutely hilarious, seeing as Kent's arguments have not changed one jot over the last 10 years. So what preparation does he need?
Well,
The only preparation he needs to take along is to polish off his little sign and his little chart that has 6,000 years, God 6,000 years, nothing, eternity or whatever. And that's all he needs to do his lectures. They've not changed one jot.
Yeah. There are at least 6 different types of evolution. Oh, geez. Here we go.
Should we have another?
There are 2 things there, DPR. I mean, first of all, I've actually seen Hovind's videos where he says that he'll sort of debate people on the spot. He doesn't need to prepare. So, I mean, that one makes me a little suspicious. Something's not quite. Yeah, something's not quite adding up there. And secondly, Aaron's made videos where he said he wouldn't debate Hovind anyway, because he thinks he's whatever, charlatan or some shit, which is, I don't know, a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. But
yeah, well, sorry, on Aaron's point, which I understand that to mean is that once somebody's been defeated, once you've sort of taken up the task of exposing them, and not that I'm agreeing or disagreeing, I'm just paraphrasing as best I can, that when you get something like a Bill Nye, Ken Ham type thing happen, where Ken Ham is just exposed as essentially admitting, I'm not really interested in what's true or not true. I'm not interested in developing a method of divining what's true and what isn't true. If it's in the Bible, then that's what it is. Once a guy declares that I've got these blinders on and I'm not interested in what you have to say, I'm not interested in whether or not you take up what I have to say, well, then you go, okay, well, that guy's exposed and it's time to move on. And I think he was making a similar point.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Right? I mean, if it was that simple, I mean, you would say, right, Popoff was exposed. We don't need to actually bother with the fact that he's doing it all over again. I mean, there is the stuff needs to be out. People need to see it, right? The fact that it's been done once doesn't mean that everyone's seen it.
Yeah.
And so there is a need to do these things again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, okay. I mean, there's two issues. One is whether or not I characterize Aaron's position correctly. I would encourage people to watch his video and get his opinion from him, and don't take my word for it. And then, second, if that was an accurate characterization, okay, Thunder, you don't agree with it. I have trouble knowing like which. Like what's the proper gas pedal setting here? Like, do we keep going after the same guy once he's been beat up? I think that there needs to be repeated response, not necessarily constant engagements. I think once somebody has completely evidenced themselves as being disinterested in actual conversation, then you don't need to converse with them anymore. But we need to continue. Boy, Popoff is a great example, because we don't need to have debates with Popoff. What we need to do is to do the repeat exposure. There are people who are watching this broadcast right now who either were children or not even born yet when James Randi did the very famous thing that you're talking about. There are people who are watching this now who don't even know what we're talking about because it happened so long ago. So Popoff is somebody we need to continue to make material that addresses his material. But in terms of engaging him, there's no need to talk to Popoff about this stuff. And
He
maybe
wouldn't talk to you anyway. I mean, this is like,
right,
Kent
right.
Hovind is really sort of outside the envelope when he says that
I know, but
he'll engage.
yeah, I know. I'm just picking up on your point though about Popov, that we just expose him once and then move on, and then 30 years later, hopefully he's not able to pull more scams, because obviously he is. But the question then becomes, well, what about the people who will engage? What about Ken Ham and his ilk? The what's it, Prudhomme and other people that work with him that are willing to come up
And
and talk.
absolutely, I mean, you've got to keep driving
And
at this.
Hovind.
I mean, if you do it once and then say I've done it and go home, then you basically ceded the field, and they'll keep going, and you won't, and they'll get more market penetration, I guess you'd call it.
Right, but the debate, the discussion then, or where the difference of opinion lies, is not, well, do we just say, okay, well, great, we've done it, like say, pack up your gear and go home, and then just let them have the field. Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea at all. But then the question is, how do we address what they're doing? Like with Popoff, we don't talk to him. With Ken Ham, there's really not much point in talking to that guy. And again, I'm not intending to argue for Aaron here, but just to sort of present what I think his point was. We can continue to produce content that addresses their chicanery and lies and whatever else. But in terms of saying, well, I'm going to beat Ken Ham by talking with him face to face and exposing him through conversation, there's a point where that's just not helpful anymore. And I think the same may be true of Hovind Senior and Hovind Junior. I don't know, and that to me, that's an open call. I'm not taking a position away on that.
So, I mean, lots of people say I suck at this sort of thing, but I still think that there is worth and value in actually sort of sitting down and actually just discussing, talking to these people. Because people then get the contrast of, I mean, the bottom line is it's someone who's sane talking to someone who sort of, they believe in fairies and the such like.
Yeah.
The problem I
do like
is... Sorry, Hogtie, do go on.
No, please. No, yeah, I do like the conversation. I do think there's room to continue doing it. I tell you where it sort of grinds to a halt, that sort of a discussion about, well, whether or not we should be talking with these people, is that there's no edict that can make people not talk to them, right? This happens all the time. In YouTube, there'll be an apologist that's identified as being a waste of time, and then say, okay, well, we're not going to talk to that guy anymore. But then other people will charge it and do it. There will always be somebody who talks to Ken Ham. There will always be somebody who wants to write email and do discussions with Kent Hovind. So I take Aaron's point to be, in Aaron's opinion, there's not much point in him talking to him. But you know what? If Thunderfoot wants to go talk to either of the Hovinds, then that's what Thunderfoot's going to do, right? So I just, to me, it's almost, I mean, I think it's an important discussion, but I also don't think that it ever leads to a decision. We are going to do this or we are going to do that, because we ain't doing either. So I'm sorry, DPR.
No, I now slightly lost my point, because I'm just thinking about what you're saying, and whether it's necessary to readdress what Hovind is saying the best part of 10 years down the line. And I suspect that because there is, or there are people who are not aware of the absolute failures in his argument, that Thunder is correct to keep on addressing them, because it's not quite a new generation, but it's sort of like a new load of people who have come to YouTube, and I'm sure will be watching them. Thunder, you said he'd got a new channel. I don't know how many subscribers he's got, but his arguments, I don't know. I'm guessing, I suppose. I don't know whether people are going to buy into those arguments. I suspect they will, and so they need to be debunked again. So I'm kind of with you, Thunder, that this sort of nonsense needs to be addressed at time and time again. And I also am grateful to the person that said that he was aware of Randy debunking Popoff, even though he probably was not alive at the time. I think he put down the date at about 1988. I'm not sure I would disagree with that.
I think the first person who said he was born in 94, like the one guy who'd said that, said he was actually born, would have been clearly years later.
Oh, that would be years later, yeah. But it's not going to be that long before a generation exists that were not alive at 9/11. But that leads me on to one. Well, I don't know. Perhaps it's not the best segue. One of the things that I did manage to do when I was visiting Aaron a few weeks ago was to actually visit Dealey Plaza and see the site where Kennedy was assassinated.
Did you stand behind the grassy knoll?
I did, and I had photographs taken me, and I was actually going to have some of them sort of like up and ready to show to the audience. But yes, I stood on the grassy knoll. I stood where Zubriger took his film. I stood on the X's that they actually have on Elm Street, where he was when the shots were fired. And I also encountered someone who was standing on the sidewalk. I think they call it in America. I'll use an American expression, with clips of the Zeebrugge film and talking to people who are obviously tourists, mainly sort of like at that time were Japanese. And I just thought, I wonder if this person is sort of like selling the true account, or whether he is trying to sell some sort of conspiracy. And I walked up, and the first thing I heard him say is that the shots were fired within 5.6 seconds or something like that. And as soon as I heard that, I thought, I can't listen to any more, because they weren't. It's a lie. It's another sort of like conspiracy theorist. I did hear another bit. Oh yeah, Oswald wasn't a very good shooter. He didn't make the grade, and he was kicked out of the army. And then he comes along and does these incredible shots that no one ranked as poorly as he could possibly have done. I just didn't have the energy to take him on face to face. But yeah, it kind of it irritated me. But yeah, it was fun to go to Dealey Plaza. It's slightly smaller than you'd think, looking at the footage. But yeah, it was fun. Anyway, Hogtie, you said before the show that you wanted to raise a topic about Kim Davis. Let's go in that direction now.
Oh, what did I say before the show? What were we talking about? I think what I said before was about Planned Parenthood, and then I think I said, well, if it's going to be you and me, we can. There's actually a few things like Kim Davis, or I mean, I would even be happy to cycle back to the Sweet Cakes by Melissa thing. Kim Davis, I'd be concerned at this point, is a little bit sort of overplayed, because everyone's been discussing her situation so much, and not much has changed lately, except for one motion that she's filed with the Supreme Court. Or sorry, was it a motion? Whatever it was. So I mean, people know Kim Davis is that county clerk that refused for a period to hand out to sign marriage certificate, or marriage licenses rather, because of her so-called religious objection to gay marriage. and she went to jail for it. So people I'm sure are pretty familiar with this. I don't even know DPR if it's. I mean, unless maybe Thunder's got something energizing to add on it. Well, let me say this. I'll tell you one thing I've done for the last 2 or 3 weeks now. I've had, and I sort of once in a while go back to my plus feed and revive this challenge. I've been challenging people to please tell me what her religious objection is to signing these marriage licenses, and I have none so far. Well, sorry, there's one. There's one. Some of the evangelicals that support Kim Davis's freedom to not sign these licenses will cite from Exodus, was it 18:22, about how man shall not lie down with man, which I find bizarre. I just find bizarre, because you see it so often in these discussions where a non-believer will go to a Christian and say, "Oh, you want to follow the Bible? Well, then are you wearing clothing made of mixed fabrics, or are you not stoning disobedient children, or a guy for picking up sticks for working on the Sabbath?" And they'll go, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! That's Old Testament. That was old laws just for the ancient Hebrews, and not for we're under a new covenant now. So ha ha, Mr. Atheist, you don't even know the Bible." And yet, when you ask them what justifies Kim Davis's actions, specifically, she's not signing these truthful statements that these people have come forward with the proper documents that would qualify them for a marriage license. She is preventing her deputies, or at the time had been preventing her deputies from acting according to their conscience and signing them or not signing them. And third, she diminished her family by letting herself go to jail. How are any of those things supported by the Bible? They will say, well, it's this Exodus 18:22 that says a man shall not lay down with man as with woman. So the part of Exodus that says, has the sexual mores, that says that an ancient Jewish man should not have sex with another man, Kim Davis would break that rule somehow. As a Christian living in 2015 United States, you know what I mean? Like how can they on the one hand play this, oh, well, that's the Old Testament, and then when you ask them for justification for her actions, the only thing they can bring to you is that. So,
but this goes back to the age-old question about does it not, about when you ever challenge any theist, or sorry, any Christian about the contents of the Bible, and you say, look, you should, slavery is endorsed, stoning people is endorsed, and whatever, and they say, oh, no, all that changed. There's a new covenant. Okay, so which particular laws now apply? And they say, well, this law still applies, but that one doesn't. And as we know from, I think it's Leviticus, is it not? In the same chapter.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Near verses, you have the anti-gay sort of like line, and then you've got the anti-shellfish line. I mean, they're not that far apart, and they do not seem to be put in any order of importance, but they pick and choose from the Old Testament. Yeah.
Yeah, and I apologize. 3 times I said Exodus, I meant Leviticus, and was it 18 or 19, whichever it was. But yeah, it's right in there with the shellfish and the mixed fabrics and that sort of thing. They always bring that up. Oh, that was the Old Testament. This is the New Testament. They always bring it up at the wrong time. Or I guess actually sometimes they do bring it up at the right time. Like if you go to them and say, well, why don't you follow this rule? Why don't you stone somebody to death for picking up sticks? They can say, well, according to my theology, according to my spoon-fed Christian evangelical understanding of the Bible as a whole, I'm not supposed to follow those old rules. Okay, that's fair. But they quite often bring it up in this context, where they're completely wrong to do so, is if they're presenting to you that the God of the Bible is holy and is the complete moral guide. He is the moral compass of all moral compasses. And you say, yeah, but slaughter the Amalekites, or whatever. You bring up something from the Old Testament. Then they go, whoa. That's the Old Testament. We're under a new covenant now. Okay, that's a misapplication of the old, new covenant rabbit out of the hat. Because when they're arguing that the God is holy and is moral, and you give them an example from something of the corpus of work that's attributed to God, they can't now they can distance themselves from old ancient rules because of the new covenant, again according to their theology. They can distance themselves from those things, but they can't distance their God from the old covenant, from the Old Testament. And it just shows me that when they say something like that, when you tell them, "Oh, look, this is something that happened in the Bible," that would just seem to me like that's not a very good thing to be doing. What do you think about that? And they go, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's Old Testament." It just shows that they're not listening for what the conversation is actually about. They're responding to that. Just as soon as you start talking about something unpalatable in the Old Testament, their knee-jerk reaction is to start claiming that it's the Old Testament. But like I say, they can distance themselves from the ancient rules, but they can't distance their God from the ancient actions, which they claim they believe to be true. So, but yeah, they will. I know. I'm just surprised they haven't. No, not one of them. And I've asked some pretty. I haven't just sort of asked the little crowd that's around on Google Plus. I've asked like Matt Slick and Tim, the Bible thumping wingnut, and other people who you think are like there are people that actually this is how they earn their living is through apologetics. More Matt Slick than Tim, but not one of them has been able to come up with, well, here is I'm getting Matthew 5:17. What's that one? Sermon on the Mount. We should know this. That's from the sermon, man. Let me look it up. If you guys have something else on the, I think that I'm a little concerned that because so many people have been talking about the Kim Davis thing lately, I'm not sure how much we have to add to it. I'm not saying that we don't, but Matthew 5:17, but not come to destroy the law. This is Matthew 5:17 is about whether or not the new covenant is something that should. Yeah.
Is this where he says, "I've not come to change the law one jot"?
Yeah, I thought that this was in the Vaughn comments. So the Rumpus was offering up had said Matthew 5:17, and I thought maybe he was referring to something that would be assistive to Kim Davis, and it's not.
The apologetic argument that I've heard in relation to that is that that doesn't mean that he's not come to fulfill the new covenant, and this was always predicted in the Old Testament. So when he says he's not changing the law one jot, what he means is he's not changing what has been predicted in the Bible, and for some reason, which I don't fully understand, the God kind of sort of like set this into plan and always knew this was going to happen, and once he sacrificed himself to himself, then that would make everything better. That's the best I can do at explaining it.
Well, you know what? It's a whatever. I mean, it's such an inkblot test. How you're going to interpret what's in the Bible when it comes to issues like this, and that's why I kept saying, and sometimes I'd be saying something, and I sort of have to retreat and remember. Wait a second, I'm not talking about what the Bible says. I'm not talking about what Christianity says. I am talking specifically what evangelicals spoon feed each other for their theological interpretation of what's actually written in the Bible, because those are not the same things, right? So, and I'll tell you what I find interesting about the Kim Davis case when it comes to this issue about what scriptural guidance does she have. I want to be really clear on this point. I don't think it matters whether or not the Bible supports her opinion or not, because what she's arguing is her religious freedom, her personal freedom to be to express. To hold whatever religious beliefs she wants and to express them however she wants. Now, it happens to be that her claim is that she's a Bible-believing Christian, but that doesn't even have to be her claim. Her claim could be that she's a tree in my backyard believing Christian, and that the Bible was some stuff that was written by men to sort of their way of coming to understand God and Jesus and whatnot. But actually, the tree in my backyard is the real source of revelation for what God wants for us. And the tree in my backyard says that I shouldn't sign these certificates or these licenses. That would be just as legitimate of an assertion of rights or assertion of a right to an accommodation as her claim that it's her understanding that the Bible says she's not supposed to sign those things. Right, and I think that's an important distinction because, like I say, I'm trying to make the point that she's saying, well, it's my religious freedom to not sign these things, and I'm saying, well, that's really funny because you claim to be a Bible-believing Christian, but it's not in the Bible. In fact, the Bible tells you to do quite differently. The Bible tells you to honor the law of your nation, that the Bible tells you that the Lord has put these governments into power, including putting in the United States Supreme Court into power. The Bible tells you to honor your oaths, and the Bible tells you to tell the truth. So here are two women who came to you with a set of papers, and they're asking you to sign a certification that says you've reviewed they have the appropriate papers that would qualify them to enter into marriage in your state. So it's the truth. The basic rule for her pen touching the page for whether she's going to sign these things is truth. Tell the truth. Are the papers in order? Did they provide the proper affidavits and documents? Yes, sign it. No, don't sign it. That's the decision she's got to make, and the Bible tells her to proceed that way. So it's her personal choice to say, well, I don't want to do that. She doesn't get that guidance from the Bible. But I want to be clear about this. Just because I'm saying it's her personal interpretation of the Bible or whatever else, that doesn't make it any less valid of a claim on her part. Because what she's asserting, she's not asserting that God told her not to sign those forms. She's asserting that it's her personal view, it's her interpretation of her religious beliefs, that she shouldn't have to sign the forms, if you follow that distinction. I think one claim is just as strong as the next.
Thunder, are you still with us?
Yep. I just agree with that, but I've got nothing really to add to it, though.
Okay, well, there's one thing I'd like to pick up with you, if I may, Thunder, and it's a slight change of topic, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to read the comments in the chat, but Thunder, this is a criticism that has been made about you, probably not only recently, but for the best part of a couple of years. People are telling you, stick to the science videos. We don't like your other videos, whether it be Islam or feminism or whatever. But obviously, in recent times, you've been making videos about Anita Sarkeesian. Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
I don't really follow the videos that you've made against her. I've seen some of them. With your science videos, some of them I rewatch because I think they're incredibly educational. With the ones that you make about Anita, I don't. I'm not entirely sure that you make your point as clearly as you could do, but so far as I understand it, your main criticism against her is that she received an enormous amount of money to produce some sort of productions that would prove that, in particular, in relation to the gaming world, that women were being sort of like picked on and whatever. I probably not.
I mean,
expressed that very well.
the fundamental problem is that the core premise of her entire argument is bullshit,
No,
which is that video games
don't
actually
worry.
are a significant
Don't worry,
causal factor.
I'm not going to disagree with you on that point. I just want you. I think you're right. She's not produced any evidence to support her initial claim, and I would agree also that you're right to point out that she said, given the money that she was going to get, she would make so many videos, and she's failed to do that. I think that.
I mean, these are absolutely peripheral. I mean, it's kind of funny that, she's been given in total about $500,000 by feminists. If you like, that's the bit that's actually amusing. I mean, whether she got the fact that she got the money is I don't really care about. The thing is that this was, if you like, that of all the people they chose to support, she was the one that they thought was going to be the one who would make the arguments the best, right? So if you like, this is sort of de facto the financially elected top feminist, and the arguments that she puts forward are just outrageously stupid.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I guess the question I'm asking is that I don't know. Why do you think you're getting so much criticism for making these observations, which on the
What
whole seem to be?
criticism, TPR? There,
Oh,
uh,
you don't think you're being criticized when you've just posted a video like within the last week in which you show people calling you out and saying all sorts of awful things about you. I mean, it's not coherent criticism, but it's aggression and whatever.
exactly. DPR. If that's the sort of criticism that you really worry about, then when you sort of say that, what was it? That I get a lot of criticism for these things. Yeah, if that criticism comes from batshit crazy people, I don't think you ought to be taking it too seriously.
Sorry, yes, I was listening. I've got someone that wants to join us though. So this it's so long since I've done this. This will involve a little bit of juggling around with the Skype connection, but we've got hopefully the rationalizer who's going to be joining us shortly. And again, just to remind people, if you're watching this live and you do want to join us, send a Skype contact request including the details of what you want to talk about. And we'll see if we can get you on. But I've got to try and figure out how to do this now, and it will take me a couple of minutes, so do bear with me.
So, well, whilst that's going on,
Sure.
yeah, so Anita Sarkeesian also managed to get to the United Nations this week, and to Google, actually it was last week, and to Google Ideas, which is a sort of subdivision of Google. And her intent seemed to be pretty clearly that she was up for stopping harassment, which is seems to be pretty clear is for her just a euphemism for criticism, seeing as she has listed me repeatedly as one of her harassers.
Yes, I agree with that, and again, I think I agree with the sentiments that you express. If you're going to put yourself out there in the public domain, and make comments, which some of which may be controversial or not,
Yeah,
but if
people get
you're
at least the right to reply.
absolutely, and provided they reply in a reasonable manner, then I just do not
You
see.
have to
I
be
do
that
not see.
reasonable. I mean, that's the thing about
Well,
the.
no. By reasonable, because you actually, so far as I identified, you actually made a video in which you were referring to, I think, Jordan Owen and someone else whose name I can't remember. And
Davis
at the
or Reading.
conclusion of that video, you were saying, look, these people then sort of like sought to find out what had happened in her past. And you said, you said this. You that is criticised so often, you said this is
Oh,
going
for
far
fuck's
too
sake,
far.
TPR. TPR, right? There comes a point when speech becomes action. For instance, if I actually am going out and advocating that we kill Jews as genetically inferior scum, that's no longer just free speech, because you are actually advocating killing people.
Yes, and Thunder, I'm not entirely sure that you're aware. I'm supporting you on this. So
Yeah,
her criticisms to the United Nations and how on earth someone like that gets before the United Nations is quite beyond me. But anyway,
Yeah, but you were
yeah,
sort of
that's
saying you were criticizing me for saying that some things aren't actually free speech, and yeah, and that's
no, I
entirely
don't.
right. Some things are
I never said that, Thunder.
That's where you were going.
Did I say
yeah.
that?
Well, let him. No, you got to let Thunder. You got to let him get there where he's going. I think a couple of times he's raised the issue. He said, "Well, some people say this," and he's giving you a chance to respond to it. But I don't think he's actually presenting those arguments. I mean, I think the point can be made that I'm sure that if somebody went through, as Anita Sarkeesian obviously has, gone through her inbox and her tweets and whatever media, all internet stuff, all the communications directed at her, I bet you can find some pretty awful stuff, right? I bet you there's people who write stuff like, "Oh, I hope she gets raped," and, just says loony, stuff. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think people should be sending those, but that's the internet. That's the type of stuff that people send. Not that I'm dismissive of it, or that, because I mean, people shouldn't be doing that. But she takes that tar and just tars everybody else with that brush, right? She takes even people who provide criticism or commentary on what she's doing, and just treats it exactly the same thing. Like, oh, these people out there, these rape apologists that are just quite happy to whatever, and it's just it's a way of dodging legitimate criticism that's put towards her in a reasonable, legitimate way.
The thing that you'll notice about Anita Sarkeesian is the one thing that she never acknowledges that people are allowed to do is criticize her. It's always harassment.
Yeah, and the other thing, exactly. The other thing that I think that you did do a very good job at is identifying this nonsense of objects act upon. What's the expression? Objects act upon subjects. Subjects are acted upon, and whatever. I mean, it's just one of the most. You correct my definition of it, but it's got to be one of the most ridiculous things you've ever heard of, because all you need to do,
yes,
I think you've exposed this, is to show, well, hang on, let's just turn around the definition, and you get a different result.
Yeah, and DPR, that's mainstream feminist theory.
Yeah, and just
calling it theory is an abomination in itself. Actually, it's not a theory.
Just help me out, so for the sake of the audience, because I haven't quite got it right. Objects are acted on, and subjects are acted.
Subjects do the acting.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, it's mindless. Anyway, we've been joined by the Rationalizer. Welcome, sir. What do you want to bring to the table?
How you all doing? Good.
Yeah, all good.
My wife and I went to Birmingham. I think it was like Selly Oak University, or a University of Birmingham in Selly Oak, a few days ago, and we went and saw this unveiling of the Birmingham Koran. Do you remember that one? One of the world's oldest ever Korans. And yes. We went and had a look at that. It was quite interesting, actually. It was good. And then, of course, there's I wouldn't exactly call it a controversy, but there's because of the carbon dating of the parchment itself is from some time between something like I don't know, 570 something and 648 or something like that. People like, say, Tom Holland are saying that this is problematic. Stories of how Islam was supposed to have come about, and how when the Quran was written down and things. But of course, even if I'm reading it correctly, the carbon dating reports shows most strongly it's going to be around 610, which is when Muhammad was supposed to have had his first experience with the angel Gabriel, and yet the chapters written down on this page are the 44th and 45th ones that were supposed to have been revealed chronologically. But I'm not really seeing what the problem is, because there's also a little bit of English writing on there saying what it is, and that doesn't prove that the English writing has been on there since 610. It just shows that the parchment, the goat was killed around 610. So it's just a shame, really, that we can't carbon date. Well, not carbon date. We can't in some way date at what point the ink touched the paper. I just thought I'd, being as we were talking about, you were talking about science, Thunderfoot's science videos and religion and stuff. I just thought I had a little bit of science and religion combined to bring up. It's quite an interesting display, though. You should go and see it if you're able to.
Okay. So what's your interpretation of so?
Well, for me, it's just what the lady there said, that it was obviously seen as a precious piece of text because it would have taken somewhere between 60 and 80 goats to make enough leaves to write the whole Quran onto. Obviously the goats were expensive, if you're going to need 60 to 80, you're not necessarily just going to go out and kill 60 to 80 goats. It's possible you're just going to go out and look at other parchments that already exist, wipe them down and rewrite on them. So I think the fact that it's written on something expensive probably makes it more likely that the text came long after the goat did.
Yeah. And we can date the goat. Okay.
Well, when people were talking about Thunderfoot's videos and saying they preferred his science ones, well, I did. I don't really watch his videos. Sorry, Thunderfoot. But I watched a few in the early days about science and stuff, and I thought those were ace. You know, about who was it? Which Christian apologist was it that came up with some idea about the whole Earth being covered in like some shell of ice and that it all fell down?
That was Hovind.
And then watching this video, and Thunderfoot's explaining what kind of entry speed you'd get and how it would vaporise and kill all the life on Earth by burning it and stuff. You know, and that stuff was really good. I enjoyed that.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do then. I'm actually going to play his most recent video, if that's all right with you, Thunder, in which he addresses the debate challenge by Kent Hovind. And the one thing that I would like you to appreciate, not just you, Rationalizer, but also the audience, is just what a patronising and quite offensive person Kent Hovind is. Thunder, is it all right for me to play your video?
Yeah.
Let's go for it. And we've got a contact request from... sorry, I've got to... Yeah, there we go. I've got a contact request from Quantum Overlord. We'll see if we can get you in before the end of the show. Right. Hopefully this will work. Have I got enough of it?
Kent Hovind.
Dr. Hovind has his doctorate in education. He's great at explaining scientific principles. He taught science for 15 years and is an expert on this subject.
And has challenged me, of a sort, to a debate. And naturally, he's operating under the delusion that he's still some great thinker and can do it with his brain tied behind his back.
Hello, Dr. Hovind. The atheist side would like to discredit you with a failed debate immediately after your release, which is now. They have received tips and planned this with various internet atheists like Thunderfoot 00T. You know, somebody sent me a link and I actually watched part of this Thunderfoot debunking something I said. I would be honored to debate Thunderfoot with 3/4 of my brain tied behind my back. 90% in his case, so please do.
Actually, Kent, I'm pretty sure that's the sort of rhetoric you came out with about beating the taxman. And we all know how that worked out.
I believe the Bible is literally true and scientifically accurate. I believe it from cover to cover, every detail.
I mean, I have prayed about it and searched, of course, I've talked to Glenn for hours and hundreds of hours over the last 4 years, you know, and I know there's a lot of people with different opinions on this, but I am 100% convinced that what we have done is correct scripturally and legally. I mean, we are not guilty. I mean, there's just no reason for them to have me here. Just none, you know. I read over everything 100 times, and I said, I don't know of anything we've done that violates any laws. Well, as far as I can see from restudying the law, we are absolutely obeying the law, and they are not obeying the law.
I just spent the last 9 years in federal prison over one of the dumbest laws ever passed in the history of humanity, structuring.
You see, claims are easy. It's reality that's hard. And that's your fundamental problem, is that bravado does not constitute a factual argument.
I would be honored to debate Thunderfoot with 3/4 of my brain tied behind my back. 90% in his case, so please do, yes.
And when you try to do factual arguments, they tend to be demonstrably wrong. Like, for instance, your ice canopy theory, the Hovind theory.
Pre-flood, things were different. I think there was a canopy of water that increased air pressure, which would make animals grow much larger. The Bible says the water above the atmosphere, it's mentioned several times in the Bible. Now, if the Bible is right, and the earth had a canopy of water overhead, like the Bible, I think, clearly teaches in 2 Peter 3 and in Genesis 1, 6, and 7, this canopy of water would filter out quite a bit of radiation. Suppose there was a layer of ice 10 or 20 or 30 inches thick above the atmosphere. It made the canopy they used to protect the earth collapse.
Which you demonstrate by simple thermodynamics. You know, conservation of energy would have cooked every living thing on Earth if that
fell to the Earth. I mean, let me just give you a quick demonstration. This is a Titan I rocket, and it carried enough energy to put a couple of tons into space. That's a couple of cubic meters of ice. And rocket engines typically have quite a good efficiency, between 50 and 70%. That is, if you were to drop a couple of tons of ice from space, this is about the energy that would be released. And Kent is proposing dropping at least a ton of ice per every square meter of Earth. Basically, every square meter on Earth would have about this much energy dumped into it. Oil claims that one drop of water could cover the entire Earth if you only spread it thinly enough.
These scoffers are willingly ignorant. That means dumb on purpose. You say, come on, is it possible to cover the Earth with water? Well, theoretically, one drop of world will cover the water. One drop of water will cover the world if you spread it real thin.
Which was only wrong by a factor of 1 trillion. That is, the minimum amount of water to cover the Earth is about 150,000 tons. Not one drop. Or the fact that the guy presuming to lecture others on evolution doesn't understand the underlying biochemistry of evolution.
If you took one chromosome from every individual on the planet, and this chromosome, each chromosome contains the blueprint, the instructions for how to build the entire person.
No, it doesn't. So, Hovind's scientific education doesn't extend as far as knowing the difference between a genome and a chromosome. Chromosomes are large DNA structures that constitute a fragment of the genome. For instance, in humans there are 23 chromosome pairs in the genome. One chromosome does not constitute enough information to create an entire human being. Base pairs are the complementary aromatic groups in the center of the double helix. Zoom out to the double helix, and a sequence of the DNA helix that is tied to a biological activity is called a gene. Now compare this to Hovind's biological understanding.
DNA has 4 base pairs. What they've done is they've taken each of these genes and they take a whole cluster of molecules and call it a base pair, like they give it a letter A.
Or that you think that Africa had to be shrunk by 40% or something to make it fit with South America.
They don't tell the kids they shrank Africa nearly 40% to make them fit. If you cut it out on get a globe and cut Africa out, and then cut South America out and compare it to what they did in their textbook.
Whereas in reality, with the help of Google Earth, we find this.
Get a globe and cut Africa out, and then cut South America out and compare it to what they did in their textbook. They shrank Africa between 35 and 40%. The lies in the textbooks.
It's kind of odd, isn't it, Ken? The man who claims to be able to talk to the most infallible, omnipotent source of information in the universe can make such fundamental mistakes. For my part, I've got no aversion to having a one-on-one discussion, a free exchange of ideas. No rules, no conditions. Open marketplace of ideas stuff. You are free to talk about your virtues of this religion based on a man being willing to kill his son with a knife because he heard voices in his head which he believed to be God. You know, things that most sane people would regard as sick, rather than as the foundation for a virtuous religion. I mean, come on, we all know that if you get a crazy person saying that God wants him to cut his son's throat, we all say, oh yeah, don't bother calling the police, there's God testing another one.
Religion has actually convinced people that there's an invisible man living in the sky.
I believe the Bible is literally true, scientifically accurate. The earth is only 6,000 years old. It was destroyed by a big flood in the days of Noah.
Who watches everything you do, every minute of every day. And the invisible man has a special list of 10 things he does not want you to do.
I believe the Bible is literally true and scientifically accurate. I believe it from cover to cover, every detail.
Full of fire and smoke and burning and torture and anguish, where he will send you to live and suffer and burn and choke and scream and cry forever and ever till the end of time. But he loves you.
Nah, you're free to talk about how people who don't believe this storybook, which starts with God telling a man to put a knife to his son's throat, and if you don't believe that sort of thing, then you're going to burn in a lake of fire. And if circumstances require it, I will tell you in language as subtle or vulgar as I see fit what I think about that.
He will be the moderator of the debate, and he will monitor. It'll all go through him as far as who gets on, and anyone who uses any profanity, he will shut him off. Anyone who uses obscene gestures, he'll shut them off. They're out of the debate. So behave yourselves, and we'll get along fine. No profanity, no obscene gestures.
Well, let me put it in another way, Ken. If God's best advocate can be scared off by the simple use of harsh language, then welcome to the internet, bitch, where religions come to die. Your move.
Okay. Thunderfoot, whoever that is. Thunderfoot. What on earth would a Thunderfoot.
Not yet, no.
Would you... I'm sorry, I just realised my microphone was frozen, so perhaps people didn't hear that question. Let me repeat it for you. Has he actually approached you directly, or has he just done it through YouTube videos?
Well, not yet, no.
Yeah. And would you actually take him on in... I hate to use this expression, a formal academic debate?
A debate, I don't think. I mean, if I'm going to debate him, well, I can do that anyway. I just sort of that's the sort of why do people laugh at creationist series, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the sort of like issue that sort of like sometimes pertains in relation to these sort of things. If you give someone the credence that you're going to have an academic debate with them, it gives them some sort of standing, some sort of credence and whatever. I mean, this is the excuse that Dawkins always uses for not having a debate with William Lane Craig. I just don't think it would be constructive to have a debate with him, an exchange, whether it's YouTube videos or whatever. That could be constructive, but he will just give you the gish gallop, and you're aware of that, and you've seen him do that before.
Yeah.
What do other people think? Would you have a debate with Kent Hovind when you know he's just going to throw out so much gish that you can't gallop with it?
Well, the thing is, right, is Richard Dawkins says he won't debate creationists like William Lane Craig, but then went on to, what was it called, Christian Television or something, and spoke to Howard Conda for over an hour. And Howard Conda was asking him questions about evolution, saying things like, I don't get it. If it took billions of years to evolve, going to the toilet, how did people wait that long?
That was awesome. Well, real quick, I don't think William Lane Craig is a creationist. I mean, I misspoke there, but I mean, I think what Dawkins was saying in terms of debating any kind of generic God believer, I mean, that wasn't a debate that he had on that. I forgot the guy's name. You just said his name.
Howard Conda.
Yeah, he was it was to sit down and talk about things. I think far too much is said about academic debate in the sort of YouTube community. Like, I've not seen one academic debate on YouTube. I mean, there are some that are actually academic debates in a proper academic forum with actual academics, and they follow an academic debate format, and they do get posted to YouTube. But in terms of these people that are like, oh, I'm going to challenge so and so to debate, it's I don't know. I find it almost funny. right? I mean, this concern that comes out, well, we really shouldn't be having debates, academic debates with people that just don't really qualify for it, or something kind of self-aggrandizing about it. I don't think anybody's fooled into thinking they get credibility. Now, there's a difference when it's like Eugenie Scott, for example, that wants to debate. You know, if Eugenie Scott and Ken Ham had a debate, that's an issue, because now it sort of lends a sense of legitimacy to it. But that's not what we're seeing. And I mean, the problem you have is that anytime you sit down with any of these guys and chat with them, they'll refer to it as a debate afterwards. And of course, they'll claim that they won. If you just have a conversation with a creationist, they'll say, "Oh, well, yeah, I debated so and so, and you know, I had him totally spun around in circles. He had no idea what was going on." Just weird.
And the other thing I wanted to pick up on, and it again really irritates me, but Thunder mentioned it at the towards the end of the video. Oh, for goodness sake, if you're going to get upset by profanities, then get off YouTube. I'm sorry, I do it myself. I swear. I'm occasionally somewhat aggressive and use foul language. So fucking what? Are you so pathetically inadequate that you can't receive profanities and say, "Oh no, I can't discuss anything with you anymore. You're just too nasty and too horrible"? Oh, come on. Find your backbone. Find your balls. Am I the only one that thinks that?
Well,
I mean,
kind
for
of.
fuck's sake, I've been called a paedophile. I've been called all sorts of things.
Yeah, but only when you was copped. No one ever called you that before they saw the evidence.
Yeah. Actually, that was...
I've about being obscene with people and stuff. It's like, well, I think part of the problem is that with a lot of Christians, you do get this kind of "I am nicer than you" kind of social opinion, and that if you didn't have God in your life, you would have godlessness, and godlessness is seen as all these negative things. And when you're swearing and being obscene and being rude to people, they see that as godlessness. And at that point, what you get is people watching who they don't actually listen to the argument anymore, because they think, well, if being wrong is making me a nicer person, I don't care what the truth is. So I personally generally try to avoid telling people to fuck off and stuff. Just personally, that's what I do.
Yeah, I just can't help myself at times. I'm sorry, I'm just human. But if people say they're not going to debate me or have conversations with me just because I use foul language, then I think that's a very easy cop-out.
Well, there's a point where it's a very obvious cop-out. It's definitely excuse making. I think one of my favorite examples was where there's a woman who had called the Atheist Experience and was talking with Matt Dillahunty, and I think Tracy Harris was also there. What the heck were they talking about? They got into a discussion about well, you don't send, or God doesn't send you to hell, you send yourself to hell. And this conversation went back and forth for some amount of time. I mean, especially before they went to the 1 hour format, they used to have fairly long conversations with people. And at one point, he said something about, well, why are you doing whatever? And then she said, well, because of whatever. And then Matt Dillahunty blurts out, well, then why the fuck did you call? And she goes, excuse me? And now she just couldn't continue the conversation, just swooned, like, oh, where's my fainting couch? You know, she just couldn't handle herself. And it was obvious. Denise, some people in the, yeah, you could do a search for, it was Jeff D. Okay. I like the speedy feedback from the audience as it can correct me. Yes, it was Denise that called in. Jeff D was there, and she was quite distraught that Matt had at one point in the conversation used the F word. And you know, like Rationalizer, you're saying that it doesn't really help a conversation. Most conversations, it doesn't help to tell somebody to fuck off. Well, he said, why the fuck did you call? And it was not impolite towards her in any way. It was simply an expressive way of stating, don't call and claim that you're doing something, and then when we call you on it, to then not be doing that. Like, come on, I mean, I'm just trying to get the heart of what you're talking about here. It was obviously an expressive way of saying that. But now it was her excuse to just get out of the conversation because I can't abide being around. And in my view, I hold that in contrast with some of the really disgusting things that goes on, especially not with all Christians, but especially with the evangelicals, who, as DPR pointed out a moment ago, at the drop of a hat will accuse you of crimes, including being of child molesting. There's no hesitation in doing that. And that sort of thing to me is just absolutely disgusting in the context of, oh, well, somebody, said shit or used an F-bomb or something like that. I mean, it's so obviously excuse making when they do it.
Yeah,
I'm sure Ken Hovind just got out of prison, for crying out loud. And he can't possibly be in a room with Thunderfoot where Thunderfoot, there's a chance that Thunderfoot might use the F word. Like, are you serious?
No, he's protecting the other people.
That's
what he's doing. All those decent Christians that would just faint and stuff. And they might bang their heads as they hit the floor. I was actually going to use that Matt Dillahunty as an example of why you shouldn't. And that was because, in my opinion, up to that point, he was really kicking her ass. And then all of a sudden, and she had no excuse to leave because he was being okay and whatever, and she was really put on the spot. She was really struggling. Then he said fuck, and she, obviously I can't stay, and then left.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a real shame because he screwed up an opportunity to, someone had phoned into the show to give some opinion. He was reasoning her. He was out reasoning her on that opinion, and then he gave her an excuse to leave. I thought that was a shame.
Well, she was looking for an excuse. I'll agree with you up to the point of saying that it was a mistake on his part. I mean, I guess I'd rather he wouldn't have done it because then you want to see. But the thing is, at that point in the call, that call's got to end somehow. Yeah. And it's usually, I mean, you kind of want to let them get to the point to what I generally refer to as tapping out, is when they say, "Okay, I'll pray for you. Your soul is headed for hell. I'll be praying for you. Goodbye." Right? That's their admission that like they have completely beaten in the conversation.
See that video that DPR just played? That's one of the few videos that I remember that Thunderfoot did, because it was all about, the amount of energy required and stuff. And what I really like about those kind of videos is that rather than giving opinions on things, it just states facts. So if this is how big a water molecule is, if you spread out a drop of water, this is how much space it'll cover. This is how much you would actually need to cover the whole of the earth, and stuff like that. You can't question it. It's just simply a fact. This is why you don't know what you're talking about. And what I really loved about that is not only is it objectively proving that the person is wrong, but it also teaches people who don't know much about science some of the things about science. I remember, because that was years old, and I don't know much about science, but I knew zero. And I watched stuff like that and thought, this is a really great way to argue. This is, he's presenting these facts, and look what I'm learning as well. And I just thought those were brilliant. And it was, it helped a lot, because when I started looking at Islam, it was always about claims of scientific miracles. So I'd go and look, and I'd learn a little bit of science from investigating them. And I don't know if Hog Tai Champ, have you heard of IERA? I expect you probably have if DPR talks to you. Yeah. They were always pushing these scientific miracle claims and stuff. They eventually pulled back on it and stopped doing it, but within about the last week, they released a video explaining how the whole phenomenon came about and how it's wrong and people shouldn't be doing it, and that it's actually detrimental to their cause of getting people to become Muslims. So in the people that have criticised them, it's just a small group of us, have not only managed to get them to reverse their opinion, but now they are telling other Muslims not to do it as well. And I thought that was pretty good. And that was based entirely on presenting scientific facts and presenting historical facts to them, and that's how they got to change their mind.
they're still entranced by it, of course. And I find it interesting. I mean, since the 70s, the Muslims have really hit hard with this. Again, not all Muslims, but one branch of particular Islamic apologetics has really pushed for this the science in the Quran. I mean, there's things written in the Quran that just nobody could have possibly known. And of course, I have to look aside all the things that are just obviously wrong. And I find it amusing when modern Christians do this. Just as an example, a good friend of the show, Venom Fang X, is quite entertained by the hand washing thing, right?
Yeah.
That like, nobody would have figured out that it's a good idea to wash your hands if you're delivering babies, except for that thing in the Bible. Well, nobody ever did figure out from reading the Bible that it's a good idea to wash your hands if you're a doctor. That just never emerged from the Bible. They're going back and reading that into it.
Wasn't it, that he was harping on about? Sorry,
what's that?
Wash it in running water.
Yeah, running water. Yeah.
It's like, because no one ever washed shitty hands in a little bowl of water and saw all shitty water and thought, oh, if only there was a way it could self-replace.
Yeah. I know there was one where Nephilim Free was quite excited about reading a passage that had to do with taking your metal tools and heating them in the fire to sterilize them. Well, of course, the Bible doesn't tell you that sterilizes them. The idea of microbial life was totally foreign to any of the authors of the Bible, and for many, many centuries after the Bible had been written. But what I find interesting is they take these, or I'll give you one more. What's the reference in Book of Job, I think it is, where the Lord stretched out the heavens like a tent. Well, that's the Big Bang, obviously. That's the ongoing expansion of the cosmos. Well, obviously that's in the Bible. Well, not a single person ever figured out any of these things from the Bible. It's always, once these things have established themselves, not just in the scientific community, but in popular culture, then people go and they start reading back into the Bible and they say, oh, well, this is Big Bang, or this is expansion cosmology, or this is, microbes or whatever else. And what I find it funny is if the Christians who do this, the evangelicals who push this as there being science in the Bible, if they made even a weekend study of what the Muslims were doing starting in the 70s, with their science in the Quran, they would realize that they just pale in comparison. The Muslims are way out in front of them on this thing. Well, of course, the Muslims got to write their book, 7 or 8 centuries later, so that helped. But yeah, I mean, the Muslim apologetics on science in the Quran it was a real art form for them, and evangelicals are only now just sort of dabbling into it, and they're lame at it.
Well, you'd think that 700 years would have given the Quran an advantage, but it didn't. It's considering how many people must have at least been suspicious that the Earth wasn't flat by the 7th century.
Well established, yeah.
The Quran definitely reiterates erroneous beliefs that it's flat, that it's taken from the Torah and stuff. It's got all the same,
there are modern
firmament and
There are modern Quranic scholars that will still insist that the Earth is flat, and they have explanations for how the sun sort of dips down, this disk that sort of dips down. The sun isn't even round; it's a circle. They'll offer up these explanations. There's a growing number in the United States of people who support flat Earth, a flat Earth thing, and they have these weird explanations for satellites and phases of the moon, and they have all this stuff all worked out, and the vast majority of them are evangelical Christians, and they do so with biblical support. And in terms of you think they should have had a clue by then. Well, it wasn't merely a clue. It was well established in ancient cultures that the Earth was generally spherical in nature. And it depends what date you want to put on the Old Testament, but certainly, I mean, the Old Testament probably came first. I'm comparing it to the historical event, specifically of Eratosthenes, coming up with a way of measuring the actual radius of the Earth. Not only was it known that the Earth was spherical, or generally spherical, but the radius of the Earth had been determined and circulated amongst academics, probably after the Old Testament was written, but certainly before the New Testament was written. And yet the New Testament still... It's silly.
Yeah. And of course, still, most people at that time believed in a geocentric universe. And, I don't know about the Bible, but the Quran utterly smacks with geocentrism all over the place. And I think that and what's amusing is often it's the mistakes are twisted to try to make them sound like miraculous scientific knowledge. So, for example, it says that the sun swims in an orbit. And it's like, well, yeah, it would if you believed the Earth was the centre and the sun went round it every day. But this is presented as a miracle, as like, how did the person who wrote the Quran know that the sun actually orbits around the Milky Way? They didn't. They thought it went around the Earth, Get a clue.
Well, geocentrism as an idea certainly had staying power in the ancient cultures. I mean, we're sort of talking about the penning of the Bible and the Quran, or the ancient Hebrew text. I mean, geocentrism really didn't have any significant defeaters until well after all of those books had been written and copied many, many times. So I don't so much fault them for geocentrism, because that was kind of everybody thought that.
I do.
Yeah.
No, I'm totally sorry. I do, because if their books came from a divine source, the divine source would know that was not the case. So of course, all of the holy books can be criticised on that front.
Oh yeah, but what we're saying is we don't criticise them for backing the wrong horse. When it comes to flat Earth and geocentrism, you would back that horse, but flat Earth, you should have known better by then.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Right. Yeah,
Anyway,
God should have known better, but even the human authors of the book should have known. They don't keep up.
I'm going to cut you over time.
Okay, well, I wanted to mention to Thunderfoot that
okay,
because I used to really enjoy watching his science videos when I actually bothered watching YouTube videos, and there's a lot of stuff to do with science and Islam and stuff like this. Has he considered doing the same kind of thing with Islamic miracle claims?
I'm not even sure he's still with us. And it appears it's not. But
I'm still here.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
I've got nothing against debunking Islamic crap either.
Sorry, say that again. You did what?
I've got nothing against debunking crap, even if it does come from Islam.
Yeah, because the thing is like there's not only a lot of fake claims regarding science, there's a lot of misrepresentation of science in order to make those seem credible. There's still a lot of people that believe that it's true. I haven't seen you do any stuff on science and Islam, only science and what Ben and Fanget said was Christianity. And I was just wondering, is it because you're not as familiar with those kind of claims or not? Because if you're not, there's a group of at least about 5 of us that would be more than happy to help you to catch up and know what the claims are.
It's just too much bullshit and not enough time to debunk it. That's the problem.
Yeah. So I mean, the problem is you get, like Saudi Arabia funds these Dawah movements in the UK and throughout the world. They get like all this money and effort and stuff put into it, but you try to approach anyone, with any kind of a platform to put out the counter arguments. I think one of the problems is people see Muslims as being victimised, and if you criticise Islam, then you're being a bigot or a bully, or they'll at least be seen to be one. So a lot of the time they don't want anything to do with it. It's just a shame, really, because the people are putting out so much crap, and there's not really a very big platform to respond to it.
Well, okay, given the hour, given the fact we've been running for now 2 hours, I think it's an interesting question, Rationalizer, and I also appreciate the fact that Quantum is with us, but I am going to draw the program to a close, but I'm not going to do it without sort of like challenging you in some regards, in a light-hearted way, and we'll leave the more serious discussions to the next show. So I started off with a few sort of like trivia questions. Now we've got more people here, I think it's going to be perhaps more fun, and we'll see if we can do this in quick 5 or 10 minutes time. Okay, so my first question to everyone in the room is this. What is now being used to kill off coral-eating starfish in the Great Barrier Reef? And I'm going to give you a multiple choice. A, vinegar, B, ox bile, or C, cat urine.
I was going to say guns. I thought we're still on the guns thing.
This is one for the audience as well. So I'll just repeat the question very quickly again. What is being used to kill off coral-eating starfish in the Great Barrier Reef? A, vinegar, B, ox bile, or C, cat urine? And you can take your time.
I'm going to go for cat urine simply because
Thunder's going for cat urine. The audience has yet to respond.
I'll go for vinegar. I'll go for vinegar because you said cow bile, did you? I wouldn't have thought that would be dead easy to produce. I don't know.
I'll go for the ox bile because I think.
So Q's going for ox bile. That leaves you, Hogtie. Which one are you going for?
It's cat urine. Or to kill him off? Cat urine. No, that's dumb, but okay.
You're going for cat urine.
Sure.
All right, and the audience is going for... do I need to scroll down?
I think the lasers, I'll just read the answers.
Oh, okay. What I'm going to do for you, just...
I like lasers as an answer.
Bear with me a second. I'm going to change screens and do a new... Oh, actually, that might work. We'll just stick with that one. So, there we go.
It is vinegar. Well, I'll be darned.
But I'm going to give equal marks to those that said vinegar
It's got to be bollocks.
and ox bile, because vinegar is being suggested as being better than ox bile.
So, and what's the,
I am not kidding you. I'll put the links in the video. Vinegar
that's gotta be
apparently
bollocks.
has the same effect as ox bile, but is half the price. So they're now proposing to use
but the thing
vinegar.
is, DPR.
But Thunder, you said cat urine, so you don't have a say in this.
No, the reason that I'm instantly skeptical about that is how much vinegar do you actually have to put into the ocean? Right, vinegar is just acetic acid, right? Yeah. There is no way you can put enough acetic acid in to have any significant effect whatsoever. At least with things like ox bile.
No, Thunder, you misunderstood. The question is, it's that they are actually being injected with this.
Well,
we're not filling the oceans with vinegar. We are injecting the starfish with vinegar.
Okay, wait.
And
but if we're close enough to be injecting,
apparently, prior to this, they were using ox bile as an injectant to try and kill them off. And this is the article. And again, I will post this in. Have I got to the right point yet? I will post this in the chat. In the description.
It's not a question of which would be the best. It's a question of what are they doing. You know.
Well, the cat urine wouldn't help.
God! I'm up against a hard audience. Okay. So.
Well, I'll tell you what.
If we're close enough.
A trial conducted. Listen. Can you see it here? A trial conducted by Australian Institute of Marines, blah, 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 found that injecting starfish with vinegar showed a 100% mortality rate. Vinegar is cheaper and more accessible than ox bile, which is currently injected into starfish. I'm not making this up.
Was the researcher involved nominated for an Ig Nobel by any chance?
I'm not making this up. All right, you didn't like that one. I've got one.
Vinegar shows a 100% mortality rate. But if we're close enough that we're able to stick them with a needle, why aren't we just picking them off and putting them in a bag or squishing them or like?
That's pretty much what I'm thinking.
There was a wonderful report I saw, and I couldn't find it in time for the show, but it did say that effectively submarine drones were going around killing these starfish. And again, I swear, it was it was a true article. Whether there was truth behind the article is a different thing. Okay, I'll finish with one question for you.
If they're sending drones after them, are they terrorist stuff?
Let me go back to scene one.
Drone strikes,
okay.
yeah.
So everyone can be seen. Okay, I apologise for interrupting. Okay, so last question for you because we're overrunning. Are you more likely to be killed by a selfie or a shark?
Oh, that one I know. That one I had that discussion earlier because we were taking some dumb selfies. It's death by selfie.
Yeah. Okay, you say death by selfie.
Yeah,
selfie. I saw this Ukrainian woman that was killed by taking a selfie on. They call it in Ukraine and Russia. They do this a lot. They call it skywalking, where they climb on cranes and take selfies of each other on that.
Okay, so you're going for selfie as well.
Yeah.
Well, okay. if we're talking strictly speaking, then it's going to be sharks because no one actually got killed by taking a selfie. If you
Wait a minute,
when do people get killed? Whilst
I'm in the ocean.
Selfie.
Well, if we're going down that line, no one got killed by a shark. They got killed by lack of blood to the brain.
Yeah, caused by the shark.
If I'm in the ocean and there's a shark behind me and I have a chance to take a selfie.
Yeah, which one did you die by, selfie or shark?
Yeah.
If you could have swum away quick enough onto a boat, if you hadn't taken the selfie, were you killed by the selfie or the shark?
I'm bored with you lot. Let's see what the audience say. Selfie with a shark killing starfish. No, that's not the right answer. It's going to be selfie or... Everyone's going for selfie. And I have to say, you're absolutely right. Let me go back. I'm going to have to add this screenshot. And that kind of works, I think. There we go. Selfies are killing more people than shark attacks. And if I scroll down, we can read that. And this... I think it's awful to laugh at other people's misery, but it reads, if you can't see it yourself, so far this year, 12 people have lost their lives while trying to take a photo of themselves. But the number of people who have died of a shark attack is only 8. And then it goes on to give some accounts of people who have died taking selfies. A 66-year-old tourist from Japan recently died after falling downstairs whilst trying to take a photo of the Taj Mahal. In July, a woman in Mississippi was gorged to death. And I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm laughing. By a bison.
Bison? Yes. This is a serious thing.
Yeah. But she was trying to take a selfie with a bison and got gorged.
We did Western Alberta and pretty much all of BC. People want to take photos with the... Well, we don't have the... Well, we actually now do have bison roaming free, but that's a different story. But elk, people want pictures with the elk. They want pictures with the mountain goats. Like, I'm sorry, if you're on the 16 driving through Alberta and you see a neat-looking animal, he's doing his job, just leave him alone, get in your car, keep going. You don't need a selfie with the animals. Every year we get a few people killed because of this. And the bison, yeah, they're neat-looking animals, kind of. They're smelly and whatnot, but when you get close to them, they'll mess you up. Dead. Kim Davis took a selfie.
Okay, let's have a look at a few other people that came by grief. Oh, yes, there was a book. Oh, yeah, I knew there was a follow-on story for this, okay? There was a new world record set for someone that had taken the most selfies in 1 hour. Right. Now, I don't know why anyone would even consider wasting their time trying to get this world record. So let me get me back onto screen one. Okay, so why? I mean, world records are just... If you're the best sprinter or whatever, if you're an athlete, yeah, I can understand it. But if you're so desperate that you've got to try and find some world record that is so obscure and weird... okay, most selfies in an hour. But within the last couple of weeks, the world record for the most selfies has been won by someone. Now, here's the challenge for you. How many selfies did you take in 1 hour?
Can't you just film yourself with a video camera and then each
I was
frame
going to say,
yourself?
This was done from a phone.
Yeah, I was gonna say get a super slow mo camera and then frame by frame that bugger. You'd be in the in 1 hour you'd be in the hundreds of millions of photos, possibly more.
These were.
I know.
No, Hogtie.
I got
These were individual selfies with a different person behind them on every single photograph.
Oh, that's tricky. 4 seconds.
It's gonna be in the thousands, isn't it? So it's gonna
I'd
be
say
2,000.
So who said 2,000?
I'm going about 1,500, something like 1,500, 2,000.
Quantum's going 1,500.
Yeah, I don't even 1,000. Yeah, I'll say 1,501. Yeah.
Quantum is 1,500. You're going, sorry.
1,501.
1,501.
3,600.
3,600. Thunder, are you still with us?
I've not got a dog in this fight.
I know.
I should have went 14.99.
Who cares? But hey.
14.99.
So I think this is quite easy to work out then. Apparently, and if I go back to screen 2, I can scroll down and show you that. There we are. There's the person that won it. And he won it with 1,800. So that means Hogtie, you get that point. Unless
he only said that to undercut me. So really, I should get it.
I think
that's what it's like. Wait to see what it's like when Ozzy's here.
It's not very he only did one every 2 seconds.
That's pretty much what it works out as. Yes.
Yeah.
I could beat that record. I think I might.
Yeah. But the odd thing is, I can even play this for you. Right. This is so weird that he's got all the people lined up to do it with, but all he has to do is go click, 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 and halfway through this, less than 2 minute video, it says he got exhausted and tired and started to panic and sweat. What's he got to do? Click, click. Look, watch the video. Hopefully you've got Vaughn open.
You got to unmute your Vaughn feed.
Oh, and it's got to connect as well, but. Let me just refresh the page and see what happens.
I mean, for the benefit of the other people in the Skype call.
But it didn't seem to be playing.
I'm just filling the time while you're refreshing.
There we go.
Did the guy doing it know all the keyboard
Thousands
shortcuts?
of students gathered in Hyderabad to help out in one man's personal quest to become the world record holder for most selfies taken in 1 hour.
My day starts with selfie and it ends with selfie, and people say girls only click selfies, but it's not the right thing because boys click selfies too. We see Patrick Peterson and Dwayne Johnson, they are the record holders, and Patrick is for 1 hour record holder, and I'm going to break his record today.
Bani Prakash Racha has been preparing for this moment for the past 3 years. He became selfie-obsessed after his brother got him a mobile phone with a camera for his birthday, and the idea to break the world record gradually took over his life. The former research assistant even quit his job to prepare for the event. Bani was determined to beat the Guinness World Record for the number of selfies taken in 1 hour, set by Arizona Cardinals cornerback Patrick Peterson, who clicked 1,449 selfies in the hour time limit at Deer Valley High School in Glendale, Arizona in January of 2015. Thousands of school children from the Mondridge High School gathered to help Bani out in his attempt. The selfie enthusiast's big day began smoothly enough. Children kept being pushed behind him as he relentlessly clicked selfie after selfie. The pressure of the event soon started to show. Racha began sweating and started pointing at his co-selfiers to hurry up. The selfie frequency grew and a large grin stretched across Bani's face as soon as he knew that he had achieved his dream. Bani Prakash Racha is the new Guinness World Record holder for most selfies in an hour, with 1,800.
Oh, one moment, DPR. I don't think you can be heard.
I'm
I don't think you heard in the feed yet.
Sorry,
I heard myself laughing at something you said, and then...
Yeah, I'm terribly sorry. I just wonder what is going on with humanity. And one of the things that I was going to mention at the beginning of the program, the program was that my sentiments, and I imagine all of your sentiments, go out to the workers for Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, 9 of whom were killed by an American attack at a hospital in Afghanistan in the last week. And a few people have been messaging me about the charity event that I've been running. Not me and others have been running for the last 5 years or so, and whether one was going to take place this year. I couldn't do it. I didn't have the time. I was not in the right place physically, and I certainly have not given up my commitment to that charity, and I certainly hope to be doing one again next year. I just think that the format that we were using and had been using had become a little bit tired, and people weren't excited about it anymore, so I was trying to look for some sort of like new excitement and a new way of doing things to raise money for that charity. But do not think for a moment that I've given up my commitment to it. I think it's an absolutely wonderful organisation, and as I say, I think it's absolutely awful that at least 9 of their workers have been killed in a bomb attack in the last week. Others have been injured by, I'm sorry to say, American attacks. Even though MSF obviously informs all the military powers exactly where they are, so they know to literally within feet or meters where their hospitals are. And this was an extraordinary attack, and America has not yet, although it has admitted that it probably was guilty of it, it has not explained why it happened. But yes, my commitment is still there, and hopefully, next year we'll get an event running for them again. It's something I meant to say earlier on. Anyway, let's see if we can draw everything to a close. I think I've run out of questions and run out of time for you, but it's been fun. And Quantum, I'm sorry. I'm more prepared. I'm quite happy to carry on the conversation that you wanted to do after the show, but I've always said that I want to keep shows down as best I can to no more than 2 hours, and I know that we've already overrun. So I'm going to end the shows. We will be back with you in a couple of weeks' time. I know that in November, and I can't remember exactly the date, I think it's probably in 2 shows' time, we're going to have the head of the British Humanist Association, Andrew Copson, who has been on the show before, and I'm very much looking to having him on again. But until 2 weeks' time, that's pretty much me done. Final words for anyone?
I knew a guy who claimed to be the world record holder for holding the most world records.
Oh, that's meta.
I didn't check, but he claimed it.
I have nothing to add to that.
On that bombshell, we're done. Okay, thank you very much for everyone that's joined us live, and those that watch us subsequently. We'll catch up with you soon. Take care.